Ryan is with Glostone. Glostone is a great company to partner with, especially for small, medium-sized carriers. They've been around since 1996. Oh, I thought this is 97. All right. And they help motor carriers reduce the cost of complying with regulations, state and federal. What's nice about them is they actually partner you with an actual person. They're not just going to throw a software solution at you. You get an account manager. You have someone to actually talk to, walk you through. They do a lot of compliance data with like trip reports, hours of service, tax regulations, and driver qualification files, among other things. Ryan is their business development manager. He has a bachelor's from Hillsdale College and a master's from Southern Illinois. Is that correct? All right. He's along my lines in that one of his goals is to kind of keep the bureaucrats and the government out of your hair so you can focus on your job, and that's keeping your eyes on the road and getting your freight delivered. He likes hiking. Personally likes hiking. Is involved with his local parish. And if you were participating in the bingo card, you would know that he can translate Latin. So that may help you out with that. So with that, let's hear about marijuana.
So are we good with the first poll? Okay. So I've got, okay, there we go. So I've got some great news for you guys. You can actually play with your cell phones during this presentation and not be rude. So first thing I want you to do is, if you'd like to participate in some live polling, is to pull out your cell phone. You want to pull out your cell phone? Okay, good. And then I believe I want you to text the number 22333. That's the address where the text is going to go. And then type in the message text, Ryan Walsh, RyanWalsh 105.
What's the address?
The address is 22333. That's it. Yep, and then in the message, just type Ryan Walsh 105, no spaces. And what that should do is log you into our session. And I'm going to be asking you guys a series of questions about your business because I want to see what your feedback is, and that way you can see what your colleagues are doing in regards to drug and alcohol testing. So, okay, did anybody get a response?
No.
Yes? No? Okay.
Hold on.
Yep.
Ryan Walsh, what?
105.
Thank you.
Yep. It doesn't matter.
That would have been a great screenplay.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. So we can just go ahead and move forward. And talking about Jen, actually,
Speaking of Jen.
so only positive thoughts today. Everybody knows what yesterday was, right? 420. Yeah. So today is National Surprise Drug Testing Day. And tomorrow is going to be National You're Done Day. Yes.
Is that with a Y?
Yeah. R-Y-A-N. Okay. So, Ryan Walsh 105. So again, Councilor Jennifer King, just a little something fun to get us started out today, but unfortunately, what I'm going to talk to you about today is probably not so funny. It may be a little bit more rather than, something more humorous. So first of all, though, does this look familiar to you guys? Are we driving, man? Park, man. Well, I think we should change this slide, especially in regards to the new ruling of lowering the testing rate, minimum testing rate from 50% to 25% for in testing to, are we polling, man? Oh, I don't think we're polling, man. So here's why I say that. Who has looked at the official communication from the FMCSA regarding the change in testing rate? Anybody know what the sample size was? Okay, well, we're going to talk about that today. But that concerns us as a company with CleanFleet, because what we've been seeing and what motivated this presentation is guys came to us and say, well, why should we keep my testing rate 50%? Fed said we don't have to have it anymore. Oh, okay. Well, let me show you why it ought to be a good idea. So one of the questions I'm going to ask you at the end, and something I want you to think about through this and then be able to respond to later, is that if you're not still at 50%, why not? Right? And also ask yourself, is that still enough? Because unfortunately, we found some pretty disturbing discrepancies between what the FMCSA was reporting and what we're seeing as a carrier and as a company servicing carriers and as a consortium. So just a few more points of reference here I want to make sure that we cover. Okay. In terms of citations, FMCSA, Oregon Health Authority, SAMHSA, and then our own data. So if you have any questions about the citation or where we're getting that data from, I'm happy to give that to you. I can give you those references. It's also going to be at the bottom of the slide. Plus, Luke, who's filming this as well through our booth, has a little zip drive. There's a lot of great assets on there, including this presentation, and then we will be able to get this presentation to you through the OTA. Finally, just one thing to keep in mind, for all the drug test records that we're talking about for this presentation, all that we're referring to are DOT randoms, and that's positive. That literally means positives, not dilutes, not refusals, not failure to produce sufficient urine, just positives, unless it's otherwise noted. And we'll talk a little bit about freeze, and we'll talk a little bit about return to duty and follow-up testing. Okay, good. So, what I want you to do is to respond to this text. So, as your carrier lowers the rate of random testing. Totally anonymous, so if you want to participate, I'll give you a few minutes, for a minute. Go ahead and respond to that, and then we'll see what we get. And you guys can let me know if that goes through. Anybody else? I'll give you a few more seconds here. Okay. Oh, oh boy. Okay. This is fun, right?
Hey Ryan, just so you know, you're at 13 responses so far. So.
Okay, 13 responses. Is that it, guys? Come on, there's nobody going around in here. Okay. Okay, so that's, wow. So I want you to think about that as we move through this presentation. Oh, there it goes. Oh, good. Wow. Okay. So 40% of you have kept your rate at 50. 40% of you, maybe a little percent, a little less, are lowered it, and 25 don't know. Okay? I'm going to assume that's people not directly involved in safety, right? Okay. So let's go ahead and move on, and then Luke, could you cue the next poll? Okay. So Luke's going to pull that up. Okay, so if you want to go ahead and respond to that. I think we got one response here. Anybody else? A bit too quick? Okay. So which of the following reasons describes why your carrier decided to lower their rate of random testing? You know, look at those numbers go. Boss still leading the pack, chance of losing a driver. I don't know why. Other. I'd be interested to find out what the other was. Whoever responded to that, you can come see me afterwards. 11% losing driver. So this is really, you know, these are some compelling reasons, right? Especially the driver shortage. Hey, we want to try to give somebody a second chance if they need to. Not for seeing, but primarily it's cost. So the next question I want you to think about, and we'll revisit this at the end, if you were drawing a profit before this, and your rate was at 50%, and then you lowered it because of cost, how much more are you making now? How much more did you gain, or how much did you save in your expenses? And is that worth it to your business? So let's just admit that we have a problem. These numbers are from the FMCSA, and this is from CleanFleet. And this is what we're seeing. FMCSA is reporting over the last, those 3 years of polling, 2011, 2012, and 2013, is that this is what they got for the positive rates for randoms from carriers who volunteered information. So, quick poll, not on here, who received the survey, if anybody's willing to volunteer that information? Anybody received a survey from the FMCSA during that year? Okay, we got one. Anybody else? One of you guys. Okay, and how many power units do you have?
162.
Okay, so FMCSA would classify it as a mid-sized carrier. So, anybody know 90% of all carriers have less than how many? 5, 10. 10 trucks. So keep that in mind when we're talking about the sample set here, what we're actually working with. Okay? Here's what CleanFleet has found. 1.72. Almost double that. Okay? A little less than 2012, and then even higher than that in 2013. Way higher. A couple things happened in 2013 too, relating to drugs, and specifically marijuana. Anybody know? It's legal. Where did it become legal in 2013? Kentucky. Yep. In Washington. Where else? Colorado. Also, something else happened in 2013 too, is that the state of Oregon. So marijuana has been decriminalized since 1973, but it was only for 1 gram. Anything beyond that was a Class B felony. In 2013, they brought that down to a Class C misdemeanor. Much, much lower. And guess what? Going back up there. So it's even affecting our industry as well too. And one of the things to keep in mind as well too is that the FMCSA didn't have a choice in this. This was law. 49 CFR 382305. If they report in their test that it's less than 1% over the course of 3 years, they have to lower it. They don't have the option, they have to. So now they're in kind of a tough position because other carriers and other services like myself may be seeing this, this evidence that it's actually going in the other direction, especially here in the Northwest, right? Okay. And so what I also want you to realize too is that that number represents the randoms, those DOT randoms that we had in regards to all DOT randoms, just positives. Yeah, it's that bad of discrepancies. So FMCSA reports 500,000 carriers were used as a data set for this. Okay, so 3,000 of them they sent info to. Right? They said this is how many carriers we have registered interstate. That's interstate and hazardous material carriers. So they sent it out to about 3,200. They got about 1,600 back of usable data, right? What does that mean, though? That means of the carriers listed there, and again, that's only interstate and hazardous material. That's not intrastate, which is a lot of private carriers, right? Not for hire, which the OTA has a fair amount of as well. Of that number, it's 1/3%. 1/3% were polled to see if they should change the national drug testing rate. That's incredible, guys. Now, I'm not a statistician, but that kind of number disturbs me. And that may not be representative of our carriers here in the United States, and especially not here in the Northwest as well. Okay. Just so they're known here, so for that polling data that they sent out, that's all voluntary. You as a carrier do not have to submit that back, right? So what does that mean? It's not that accurate data, right? And if you're having a bad situation, if a lot of your guys are testing positive, and had a couple in the course of the year, what reason do you have to send this back? This gives me another reason to doubt this polling data. So, this is the phrase I've been hearing a lot lately. Yeah, I don't have to test at 50% anymore. Well, that's true, sir. You don't. Why? Why? Why do you want to lower it? So, this is what the FMCSA reports for a number of CDL holders, about 4 million currently, and a number of CDL holders represented in the survey, about 500,000. So, that's 13%. That's a better sample set, right? But my question to you is that, with so few carriers responding, but with such a higher driver set, what kind of carriers are responding to this survey? Any guesses? Nothing? Small set of carriers, large set of drivers. Yeah.
Those are the ones that think they're doing pretty well.
Okay. And probably also very large carriers who have the resources to simply send this out quickly and get this back quickly as well too. So we're looking at the mega carriers. But what we're not looking at is that 90% of carriers who really make up the American trucking industry. That worries us, and that especially worried me as well too, is that if anybody's saying that we don't have to test anymore because of those federal results, that's a problem, because that is not representative of what the picture actually looks like for the trucking industry. At least not in good. Okay, so you want to queue up that next one, Luke? Okay, so that's good to go. So, have any of your drivers tested positive in the last 12 months? It's anonymous, guys. Nobody's going to know.
Does
Okay?
that include pre-employment or just already employed?
Yeah, so it's pre-employment, it's pre's, it's randoms, it's return to duty, anything you like. Fine. Okay. Give them 10 more seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wow, so it's a third of you, right? This is an issue that you guys are dealing with and that it is relevant to you. Let's go to the next one. Okay, you want to keep the next one, Luke? Okay, great. So have any of your drivers tested positive for THC metabolite in the last 12 months? Now, isn't that interesting, right? Very similar proportions. 30% of you guys said that you tested positive, and 30% said it was for marijuana. See the connection here? And that's what we're seeing on our end as well, too, is that most of the guys who are getting popped for positives are getting popped for marijuana. This is a problem. And it's not just DOT, it's non-DOT, too. I'll show you a little thing about that, too, which I think is instructive.
I have a question. Let's say you have a driver, is a Monday through Friday guy. He's off Friday. In the afternoon, he smokes a joint.
Yep.
Comes back to work Monday. He's sober, as far as we know. And there's an incident, not his fault or her fault, and then has to be tested. What levels? I mean, what are the tolerances that are drawn from to say that that person's positive?
So, are you saying, are they intoxicated or that?
Right.
Okay.
And then will it show up on the test if they use Friday and have an incident Monday or the following week?
Right.
And how does that affect, or what's the effect?
Sure. So I want to answer this question, and then if we can hold the rest of the questions at the end, that'd be useful, but I can answer that for sure. So in terms of being intoxicated, that's going to be a motor skills judgment as well, too, right? So in some sense, there's an objective criterion, right? That's going to depend on that subjective state of the person. Now, are they still going to have THC metabolite in them? Most certainly. Unless they've got almost, 2% body fat and they're huge, huge muscles, they're not going to burn through that, and even then. And most urine tests are going to detect marijuana usage up to 30 days as well, too. But the problem is, unlike alcohol, we don't really have a good measure from everyone, which is a general level of intoxication, right? So at this point, we no longer have suitable motor skills to operate a commercial motor vehicle or a motor vehicle. We don't have that. So this is something we can talk about later, but unfortunately, there's no way you would know whether that guy had used or not until you actually gave him the test. Okay, so here's what we're seeing. Here's our positives on the left, and here's specifically what it is for marijuana, right? And this is from the same data set, so this is inclusive. 1.28, 8.5, 9.2, huge amounts, right? This is why I'm saying that educating your drivers about marijuana is so important, because this is what we're seeing coming out. They know that they can't use, and yet they're still using. This is where the majority are coming from. And that's a problem now. I mean, it's a great market for drivers. They can make good money, yet they're still continuing to use, knowing that if they get caught, they're done. Or if they have a really fortunate employer, they can go through a SAP program.
What about those 2015 numbers?
Okay, so 2013 to 2015?
2015.
Okay, so 2015, this is just from our CleanFleet consortium. This is not FMCSA. This is the reason why I have these numbers for 2015 from us, but not from FMCSA, because they have not released that information yet. And so what this is indicative of is that 2015 is 2.9%. That's all the DOT randoms that we did that year. And so 2014, all the DOT randoms that came out positive, all DOT randoms positive in 2013. Of those, right, of all those DOT randoms, right, that tested positive, 1.2, or rather, of all the DOT randoms we did, 1.28 were positive for marijuana, then 0.85, then 0.92. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess to illustrate correlation, it seems to kind of go away.
Right. So what I'm saying is that it's still a large percentage of those people who are testing positive for marijuana. That's essentially what I'm trying to bring about. It's a good question. Thank you, Mike. Okay. So for this next one, this is also really interesting, we thought, is that we have the FMCSA's rate on one side, we have our positive, and this is general positive, not just THC. And then we have our non-DOT pool as well. And what we're seeing there is really interesting, is that this is 0.95, 0.9, 0.6, 0.61, 0.70, 0.47. So it moves away in 2013 there. However, for those 2 years, it tracks pretty closely. And what we believe is happening in that circumstance is that the FMCSA's numbers are more representative of the general public than specifically for the trucking industry. So this is what we can expect to see for any kind of employer that's doing drug and alcohol testing. For most employers, that's going to be a safety-sensitive function. Again, this makes me a little nervous about the accuracy of the FMC's polling, where they're getting that data and how they're getting that data. Because again, it's just following what the general use is, not specifically what that's representative of in the trucking industry. Okay. So the only thing I would also mention too, So same chart. This is just for marijuana as well, right? So 1.7 for us in 2013, and then 1.28 for the DOT, 0.95%. So on the non-DOT side, just to make this clear, that's for all randoms, non-DOT that tested positive for THC. So about 1% of our non-DOT randoms tested positive for marijuana, about 0.6 for that in 2012, and about half in 2013 as well, 0.5%. It's also really interesting as well here too. So things seem to be fairly stable until we hit 2013. Then we go up. Now, these are for pre's. This is not for our randoms here. But, boy, as we see, those three things happened in 2013. Washington and Colorado legalized, and Oregon increases its decriminalization of marijuana, and we see it go up accordingly. And unfortunately, that acceleration is pretty quick, especially for just our general DOT. Hang on. We ain't done yet. This from SAMHSA. Again, this is going to be for more non-DOT. As you can see, Oregon is significantly higher in terms of its substance abuse. And lots of staff professionals have known this for a long time because they've had a lot of people with drugs here. But understand, guys, this non-DOT side is really important for you because until that driver comes into your pool, they're non-DOT. And this is what you can expect, that they're part of this public. And that's what they're testing at, which is significantly higher, again, than what the FMCSA are supporting. Now, this is the one that's really troubling. So you ever heard most of your colleagues say, hey, I don't want to get rid of a guy because he just makes one poor decision? Anybody heard that? Okay. Well, it turns out that this is from the Oregon Health Authority. If you smoke pot, almost 30% of all pot smokers smoke every single day. 29 days, 11%. Every other day, 15%. Okay? So now we're getting close to 60%. 60% of all pot smokers here in Oregon smoke every other day. Again, so if you think your guys are just making a poor decision, likely, nah, that's not the case. They're regular users, which is to say that if a guy tests positive on a random, he's probably been doing this more than once as well, too. Now, this is even scarier, and this I about fell on my seat when I found this. So for everybody who has used Pi, who report on this survey within the last 12 months, right? 36% of those folks drove within 3 hours of using marijuana. So not only that, those guys who may be using marijuana, they just used it. This wasn't last night. This wasn't over the weekend. It was literally right before they came on shift, or when they went off for their off-duty period. Pretty crazy. So, the next thing we've seen, when the execs are considering a return to duty program, a SAP program, there comes out the money, right? SAP programs are not cheap. And whatever the SAP says, you have to do it. That driver has to go, and if it's every week, if it's every other week, if it's observed collection, those can be pricey as well too. So the OTA asked us, in preparing for this presentation, what the reaction was for SAPs as well too, whether this is effective or not. Because one of the things I want you to take away from this is that marijuana is a problem in our state, that what the FMCSA is saying in terms of the state of controlled substance use in the United States is probably not accurate, right? And if that's the case, guess what? You're going to have more guys testing positive. So you've got two choices. You keep your zero tolerance in a market where drivers are already hard to find, or maybe you consider starting a SAP program. So you want to deal with the next one, Luke? Okay. So does your carrier currently have substance abuse program or a second chance program? Okay. Pretty neat distribution. So 62% of you. Yeah, 2/3. Yeah. So maybe this is something you might want to consider. Again, tight market. What are we going to do to get those drivers? If you have good drivers, otherwise been doing okay, is that something you really want to let go of? So here's our data from what we've seen in return to duty and follow-up testing as well too, right? So pretty clear, it's going up. It's going up very quick from 2014 to 2015. So again, this is when a guy's trying to get back on duty or when he's going through a SAC program. And then we also even have Q1 2016. As we can see, the positives have stayed about the same, but we see that decreasing with marijuana usage. Which is to say that maybe these guys are getting the hint. And what I like to tell carriers is that when we're talking about what kind of program that they need to have, is that, listen, you're not just keeping your company out of trouble, and you're not just complying with the law. You might be changing a guy's life by putting him through this, right? He sees what he did, and now he has a chance to fix it. And you might have saved his life, truly. So, is it worth it? Well, you can decide about that, but from what we're seeing, at least in terms of marijuana, the numbers are going down. And hopefully that will continue forward.
So maybe they stop smoking and drink more now, right?
Hey, and I didn't have a chance to study our alcohol positives, but that'd be something interesting to look at to see if there's a correlation there. I don't know. But I will tell you that self-medication is a problem among safety-sensitive occupations. And in fact, one gentleman I was talking to this morning that said one of his mechanics out east got popped for Oxycontin. These guys are hurting, right? They're not taking care of their bodies, so they're going to self-medicate to try to do their job. So, these are my challenges to you, and I know we were kind of short here today, but I just kind of want to let the numbers speak for themselves. If you lower your DOT random rate, why did you do it? And why did you keep it at that rate? So, also, if you don't have a non-DOT program, why don't you, right? Because when you're under DOT, you can only test in very specific circumstances, but as you see, right, this is a problem beyond that. So maybe you want to have access into that as well, too. And finally, like I asked at the beginning, if you're drawing a profit at the end of last year and you had your rate of 50%, was it worth it? Lower it? Did you save that much money that it's worth it? That's it. Thank you. Questions? Yes.
So, if somebody that's possibly using marijuana medicinally, and they're getting the CBD THC blend. Is the CBD tested for, or because if there's blends that have really high CBD, low THC concentrations, does that come up?
That would not come up in the standard 5 panel for DOT. That would be more a specialized panel. So honestly, I can't answer that question for you. That's more of a technical question. I do know that we can test for that in terms of individual tests, but that would fall into a non-DOT test.
Okay, so
And that-
DOT doesn't test for CBD.
As far as I understand.
I don't know if everybody, do you want to explain what CBD is for everybody?
Yeah, can you explain CBD? Okay, go ahead.
The question is, it has to do with CBD, and that's something that I can't pronounce. I can't pronounce the THC word either. CBD is a cannabis, and it's not mind altering, but it exists in the plant. It exists in that process and can be separated. CBD may be used for medical reasons, and there's no mind altering effect. But apparently, it hasn't been separated to the extent that someone could actually be trying to use it separate. I don't know how you find CBD, but it does exist. There's two different kinds of cannabis there.
Yeah, and they come with blends. They have THC CBD blends where they have percentages where CBD is like 70%, and THC is 30%. You can't fully take the THC out. But I was wondering if drivers were on the CBD blends for medicinal reasons, if that would get tested positive for DOT.
Yeah, I'll look into that for you, but I couldn't tell you. Any other questions? Nothing.
Is your presentation on?
Yep. It is on that, and then Luke also have it on our zip drives as well too. Plus, we are going to post that, what those results were, the polling, on our social media channels, and also we'll put that up on the website. So if you want to keep that information on how your colleagues respond as well too, you'll be able to have access to that.
It seems some of your data from CleanFleet, it seemed that the rates in 2015 when they went up above 2%, but the THC rates didn't go up as high. What are the other drugs that are going up to increase that rate?
Sure. So actually the big one right now is heroin. Heroin's a huge problem. Heroin is cheaper than OxyContin right now. So it's cheaper than methamphetamines, which is crazy, right? And from a driver's perspective, if you want to use a drug, heroin's the one to use because generally it's out of your system within 24 to 48 hours. Completely. So if you're using constantly, there's going to be some holdover. What I didn't talk about in the presentation is that we have water-soluble drugs and lipid-soluble drugs, right? Marijuana, angel dust, those are lipid-soluble drugs. So they can stay with the person for a long time. 30 days for a urine test, up to 90 days if we're doing a hair test, right? Or even longer. But with heroin, it's water-soluble. You'll have it in and out of your system very quickly, which is another good reason to have a non-DOT testing program. So again, you can test a little bit more frequently if you want to, or you have some more leeway in terms of when you need to test. Yeah.
What's the average cost per test?
So are you referring to just the collection, or are you actually referring to lab fees? I mean, you want to specify that a little?
The whole thing, soup to nuts.
Sure.
You know, somebody has a random,
Yep.
from beginning to end, that one test costs how much?
For our consortium members, it would be $65 per standard DOT 5 panel, and we're about inside the market with that as well too. Yes.
So if we want to increase the testing rate, that has to be under a non-DOT program?
No. So what the FMCSA says is that your testing rate must be at least at 25%. So all you need to do is increase your testing rate, call your consortium and say, bump it up, and they'll do it. And it can be 50%, it can be 75%, it can be 100% if you want it to. Great question, yes.
You referred to a non-DOT drug testing program. The military have to have a drug testing program?
Correct. So how many of you actually have a non-DOT program too? Okay, so quite a few, right? So if you have that non-DOT one, you have to have 2 separate pools for that. They can't be mixed and down to lose the pool, right? And so with that as well too, it's going to be separate pools, separate qualifications for pre-employment, separate qualifications for reasonable suspicion. Again, you have a lot more leeway in non-DOT, but especially in the state of Oregon, and this is very important, folks. One, you need a written policy that your employees have seen, and you need to give 30 days written notice before you change your non-DOT policy if you have that. If you don't, you get yourself into a lot of unfair employment practices, especially if you dismiss somebody on a drug usage charge and you don't have that in your policy. Great. Any other questions?
Right?
Yep.
If somebody wants to stay at 50% and they're in a multi-employer consortium that's testing at 25, they just have to find a consortium that will continue to test at 50. They have to move their driver.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I'd be really surprised about though is that most good consortiums are able to alter that rate.
Okay.
And so, again, making a unique pool for a consortium, it's a computer change. You're literally switching from one file to another in an Excel spreadsheet or whatever data calculation you happen to be using. So if they can accommodate you for that change of raising that rate or lowering it, that's a problem. You need to either have a serious conversation with the consortium or find a different consortium. Other questions? Okay, thank you very much.